Welcome to another edition of Fear the North. I'm Myrie Harris, the lovely co-host Sapphire, well-known established author, journalist himself, Chris Murray. We are back. We hope you enjoyed the musical intro. And we're just here to talk some more regarding the state of the AFC North right now, a division that is amongst the best, from top to bottom. Classic gridiron football. Sometimes, as we'll get to in a bit, sometimes they can come with some snow. And let's dive right into it though. I'm happy to see you both again. How are you guys doing ahead of Turkey Week and everything?
Well, I gotta say one thing that I'm glad of and whatnot. HBO, and I kind of announced this to you guys the other day. HBO is doing it in season, the AFC North and whatnot. And I'm just wondering if they have been watching our show. They've been spying on us through the World Wide Web. That's conspiracy.
Like a QB spy, Chris.
Yeah, like Bill Belichick, or better yet, Al Davis back in the day. So like I said again, this show we were talking about this division this year before anybody. So which stands to me because I'm a conspiracy theory. I'm a conspiracy theorist in the joking kind of way and whatnot. Right. But I wonder. My tin hat is somewhere in the room.
Oh yeah,
I'll wear that later.
It's an understandable theory, and one that I definitely think we should not fully put to the curb. I think it's one we should definitely keep in mind going ahead. But for the time being, though, within the division, I think there's so much to dive into that I think the earlier the better. So. Let's start off with it. Now, Sapphire, I know that usually we will leave this team last to speak about, within our show week by week. But right now, we have to start with them first because they were within the first game within the division played in week 12. But we get to speak about them from a good note, though, on a good side. The Browns hosted the Steelers recently, Thursday Night Football. They won 24-19. It was a classic gridiron football. Came with some annual snowfall. It really got heavy throughout the second half. And you really just saw just that classic old school style of football in which it came down to two things. You better know how to run the football and how to stop the run. And we saw that from both sides, and it was just a magnificent game, an instant classic. I don't know where it's going to rank within, talk about this snowy NFL games, but it's up there somewhere. It's going to have an argument for top 5 because of everything that we saw during that game. But opening thoughts, Sapphire, from
you put it in perfect context. I agree with you. It was like classic old school backyard football in what seemed like the middle of winter. So I'm shocked that the Cleveland Browns won that game. I'm bitter because I wonder where that defense was and that offense was or has been all season. And lastly, for initial comments, it does not change my perspective on what I've been talking about. I would like to see in terms of changes in the organization, but I was very emotional after that game because it's kind of like the Ohio State University in Michigan, right? If there's one game every season you cannot lose, it's against the team up north. And so the Browns have won.
That team up north.
Oh yeah, I can't even say it. But the Browns have won the first of the two meetings. So there you have it.
Well, y'all got to show me some love up in this joint. Y'all got to show a brother some love. See, now I'm in my preacher mode. See, I got on this air last week, and I basically said that somehow I had a feeling that Cleveland was gonna do something dumb and beat the Steelers. Not dumb, but because it was tailor made for this to be a trap game for Pittsburgh because it came off an emotional win over the Ravens. I mean, it was an emotional win. That game is an emotional game, and sometimes it's hard to, the Steelers, they're not that good a team to rest on their laurels. Nobody is really in that division. And so, and then Jameis Winston, I said Jameis Winston was going to have one of those games. He's sitting now, next week when they'll play, he'll probably throw about 10 interceptions and whatnot against somebody else. But for some reason, against Pittsburgh and against Baltimore, the Browns do get up, and I saw it coming. But
you called it because you got to give you that 100%. You called it. You said so much the Browns were going to win, and I feel like we, and I maybe speak for Sapphire a little bit. Like I feel like we recognize the intricacies of this game and within this matchup, but because of how good the Steelers have been, we just thought, and the Browns, I don't think pretty much gave us, or at least Sapphire in this case especially much. Within confidence, the thing that they would somehow get over the hump and win the game. But right. you were spot on from the start. You said somehow, some way they're gonna win this game. Jameis Winston's gonna go out there and make plays, and boy, did he make some plays. I mean, there was just a visible extra sense of of effort, from this team, like making something out of nothing. Like we know, like you speak about Winston, you speak about a number of plays in which he could at times which go off and throw, like you go back to week 8 versus Baltimore, 3 touchdowns, his own hat trick within the touchdowns area. The next week versus the Chargers, another hat trick, but in the interceptions area. That's just kind of James' ball. But that night, he was just, even with the pick, he was still stable and really carried this offense like the leader he was. And then that rushing touchdown that he had, to go up later on within the third quarter, like the fact that he's in the pocket, escaping Cam Hayward, you got Joey Porter and everyone else coming right at you, and you do your best John Elway impression with the helicopter on a 4th down, by the way, 4th and 2. That was impressive and one that should be recognized because, and I'll be honest, and I promise I'm not trying to do the comparison game. I'm the last person to be doing that, but the quarterback for the Browns the first 7 weeks of the season, I don't believe he would have made that kind of play.
No, he would not have. No, I agree with you. He would not have made that kind of a play. In a bygone time when he was a good player, he would have. In a bygone time, but not, he would not have made Deshaun Watson, maybe a few years ago when he was just on top of his game, yes. But not this year. No, not this year's version of Deshaun Watson. He would not have made that play. Jameis Winston, I do think that if he can find a coach that can work with him on not throwing picks, and if he can find a good, stable situation for him, I think he can be a good quarterback. And I still think he's got some good quarterbacking in him left in him and whatnot. That's what I believe.
Right. Understandable. And within the game as well, I think it's important to speak on, and of course, there's many more parts and elements within the game that we're going to dive in. I'm just kind of going to some of the more bigger parts of the game. The penalty acceptance, right? The 2-minute warning hits. The first play after that, Jameis Winston, they're in the play action. Pittsburgh's Patrick Queen comes. He bum rushes the pocket, forces Winston to have to get rid of the ball. Originally, Mike Thomas thinking his intention on the ground, and then he finds out it was illegal touch pass on Cleveland's Ethan Postage, and he's going back and forth between the declining and accepting it, and the communication with the referees that caused him multiple stops, and finally he accepts it, and the rest is history. Instead of him being on a 4th and 2, the next play or a 4th and 1, now they're on the 3rd and 6. Winston finds Judy for 15 yards. A couple plays later, they're in a goal line situation and score, and that pretty much aged for the worse and really hurt them on that. Thoughts within that? Was that the right call? Was that just one of those things that just kind of just happens, within the course of the game? Like thoughts within that moment of him accepting that penalty, and we'll get to what his thoughts was on that too, or why he did that.
Well, I gotta say this. My thing at the end of the day, I always say, you can accept the penalty and whatnot. I mean, a similar thing happened, I think, with Nick Sirianni on Sunday, and which he basically saw the Rams come out on a 4th and 3, and then decided to accept the penalty and whatnot to move the Rams back. And I think they settled for a field goal. I mean, people want to call. I mean, I don't know. It seems like Pittsburgh fans are looking for an excuse to basically come down on Tomlin on certain calls and whatnot. It's just one of those things. So I mean, Sapphire, what did you think?
I mean, for me, like, listen, it was a very emotional game for me. I'm going to say that again. I was on the road and with the Browns backers club out in the East Coast, and what stood out to me, there were two things. First of all, the weather helped the team that I absolutely love. The weather was a factor in that game, okay? Because Lord knows the play calling on the offensive side was stinking up the joint. But when I sat there and I was really looking at the post-game stats, what stood out to me was, I think it was the Browns defense had 16 more like total tackles, right? And 25 more like solo tackles. So for me, the defense really did an exceptional job. And I get really fired up about this because you guys know I believe defense wins games. But the defense opened up a can of whoop arse on that Pittsburgh O-line and shut down Pickens, shut down every option that Russell Smith had. And as you know, when you get smacked in the arse in weather like that, you're going to feel that probably for a couple of days. The Browns out-physicaled the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, and then you had Pickens complaining about the weather. Well, as a it rhymes with itch and whatnot. but the thing is, the thing is though, first of all, how are you gonna play in this division and complain about the weather? You know how cold Baltimore was in January and whatnot. I've had glasses freeze to my face back in the day, especially when we had them big lenses. Big glasses we wore in the 70s and 80s. So glasses froze to my face. He's complaining about the weather, and like I said again, somehow Franco Harris and all these other players and some of the old Steelers who are some who are still alive and some who are still here will probably pull him aside and say, because I remember when Three Rivers Stadium was like a daggone ice rink, and two AFC championship games, one against the Raiders in which it was an ice sheet, and then one against the Houston Oilers where on one play, and it was freezing. It was freezing rain. It was freezing rain. It was the 78 AFC championship, and Pittsburgh gets cold. Pittsburgh gets insanely cold. You don't want to be in Pittsburgh in January, or Baltimore, or Cleveland, or Cincinnati, and whatnot. At that time of the year, you can't handle the truth. That's right. You can't handle it. That's right. You cannot handle the truth. And the thing is, as a Steeler, and as a Steeler, I know the other, Joey Porter's dad and Troy Polamalu and some of those guys, Ryan Clark, they want to pull that guy up and say, bruh, you complain about the weather. Wait till you see Pittsburgh or Baltimore or Cincy in January and whatnot. And especially in the Mid-Atlantic, especially coming off the Patapsco River in the harbor in Baltimore. That is cold down there. It's insanely cold. But you know what? Good that you complain, because that's nothing but sour grapes because you lost and y'all came up small.
We know you're happy. We know you're happy that the Browns played the spoiler. Your Baltimore Ravens needed that game. They needed that game that they lost to the Steelers, like, not being a factor any longer. So for me, that's really what I had about the Browns. I mean, it was this classic Browns fan. One guy got really overly inebriated and started lobbing started to laugh a lot of like profanity, but he also at the end of the game got very quiet and was in his feelings. I mean, we all were. That was just, I mean, the season has been a complete catastrophe. It was just nice to see them win a game so much to Browns Nation.
Right.
And here's one stat. I'll let you know. Here's one stat. I'm looking at third down efficiency. The Browns were 1 for 10.
Mm-hmm.
They won that game despite being 1 for 10 on third down conversions, which is remarkable. Well, but when you're getting plays on first and second down, you don't need. As a matter of fact, the Browns were 4-4 on fourth down. So if you're converting fourth downs, who needs third down? Who needs it? And they won the game. I mean, you don't want to do that all the time, though. I'm just saying.
That really helped them out. I mean, there was, no matter how long those cleats were, it just was what it was. And I mean, the thing that also stood up to me were those guys that were out there with no shirts on, with like probably frostbite. It didn't seem to affect them one way or the other. I mean, Browns fans were really into this game. I was very surprised that as many Browns fans showed up as they did. I was expecting to see a ton of those terrible towels in that stadium.
Yeah, and furthermore, real quick regarding Pickens after when just since we're on the topic of him right now, it's funny because at the end of the game, you would think at first that was an interaction with the fan, but no, he was actually going at it with Greg Newsome. They really been going at it all game, and after the game, Pickens was quoted in saying that conditions played a huge part in the game, and that he said, and I quote, "I don't really think the Cleveland Browns are a good team at all. I think the conditions saved them today." He also dove a bit more regarding saying that I don't regarding the conditions or the refs saying that the conditions were bad. I don't even think Russell Wilson could see sometimes. So when you got good conditions like that at the opponent's home field, it kind of plays into their favor. But even with that being said, like it's as true as that might be, it's hard to excuse that when you have, you're one of 22 guys on the field, from both sides having to deal with this at the same time. And the truth of the matter is, he called all 3 targets in the first quarter, and he looked to be going up. Like he called all three targets for 41 yards, but he was limited afterwards. They really did up their defensive, coverage. It was even tighter afterwards. And like you said, Sapphire, really making sure that they made it even harder for Russell Wilson, who still finished with the good game himself, 270 passing yards along with one, touchdown in the air and stuff. Like, still a good game, but it made him really have to earn those yards. And a majority of those yards as well was coming within a few of those deep passes, because outside of that, you still had him having to worry about the defensive pressure up front. That's why he was sacked 4 times in the first half. 3 of those times belonging to Myles Garrett. That last one to close out the half, in which he has his arms up like his gladiator, like, are you going to entertain? So yeah. I agree with everything you guys are saying. This really was it's more than just a tragedy. I guess we should have known, or maybe I should have known better, within a sense of like, for as underwhelming as this Browns team has been, there's no way that they let the Steelers come up in here and at least try to embarrass them, right? Like, they're at least going to give a fighting effort, and that fighting effort led to them walking out victorious, right?
That's such an optimistic view, because I submit to you, and I'm a Browns fan, if that wasn't what it was, we would have had a different game, okay?
Yeah.
The defense just, cahooned out. Like you said, 4 sacks. I think Russell Wilson lost at least 20 yards on that sack, compared to contrast that to Jameis. So I think it was sacked once for 0 loss. I mean, the Browns defense was just on fire.
Right.
So I'm going to agree with Pickens, right? The weather's different, completely different outcome. But I'm so happy that the Cleveland Browns won.
Well, you take wins how you can get them. You take wins, like I said again, you're going to win some. You're going to win some you deserve to win. I mean, you're going to win some that you deserve to lose, and lose that you deserve to win. You got to take win. It's hard to win in the National Football League. It is hard to win, and it's hard to win in that division, and because there's still a sense of pride in that division and whatnot. there's still a sense of you know what, we're not gonna. I mean, when you play somebody twice a year, you know them. I mean, it's like being in the Big Ten. It's like Ohio State and Michigan know what they're going to come with. Pittsburgh and Baltimore know each other. Baltimore and Cleveland, Baltimore, Cincinnati, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh. You all know what they're going to come with. You see them every year. You know Jamar Chase is going to come up with with a big play. You know that somehow Pittsburgh defense is going to you're going to get a visit from T.J. Watt and also Hayward, and you're going to it's going to be a physical game. It's going to be decided by crooked numbers like last week, Baltimore and Pittsburgh, 18-16, and that team had 5 field goals. It's the only game I've ever seen a team win and not score touchdowns. It only happens in Baltimore and Pittsburgh and whatnot, because Pittsburgh always figures out a way to get to Baltimore. But that's and the thing is, for the Browns, no shame in winning that game. I don't care what the conditions were. I don't care if they were having a monsoon and they used the sailboat to win and whatnot. You got to win the game. I don't care, and wins aren't going to always be 400 yards, 5 touchdown passes, and your quarterback looking like the next coming of Tom Brady, Joe Montana, Johnny Unitas, and Roger Staubach. I mean, I had to cover all those errors and whatnot, but I'm just saying. That football ain't perfect. That's why we watch the games. That's why that's why I agonize over the Ravens. When they play Pittsburgh, it's like, how are we gonna screw this game today? How are we gonna mess this game up? And that's this division, okay? Because that's how.
But I think what Browns Nation would love to be in your Ravens fandom seat instead of 3-8. So while I agree with that, and I'm not speaking for anyone else but myself, but as a fan, I don't want to take this one game where there were a lot of external factors that influenced it as the standard. The Browns are a terrible football team. The Steelers did not come in prepared to play the Browns. They let the Browns out physical them, and I'm surprised. That happened to Mike Tomlin's watch, and not that he cares, but it's given his haters over in Pittsburgh even more, fire to advocate for him to be out there, which I think is ludicrous. So, any final thoughts on that before we kind of dovetail over what you feel about the upcoming game that Pittsburgh has?
I think the final thought that I would say, and I feel like we've done a good job with them being able to cover all angles within the game, offensively, defensively, the run game and stuff. Nick Chubb still making his way, but just how pivotal some of those runs were with them wearing down that Pittsburgh defense. Pittsburgh did the same way within some of the good things they are. I think the final thought, just for now, that I had to say within this game is that this makes me even more excited for December 8th. Which will be in Pittsburgh, which will be at Acrisure Stadium. It's going to be jumping. No way you told me that none of this carries into that game. Oh. Put aside the rivalry. Just everything between those players alone. Pickens and Newsome going at it. What did Myles Garrett do after the game? He declared and said, I'm the number 1 defensive player in the league. I'm the best. Nobody has to deal with what I deal with. You can't tell me that T.J. Watt is not thinking about that before he goes to sleep, and every morning he wakes up ahead of December 8th. And better yet, for the rest of the season, because that he wants to go out there and go get his leg back and get that Defensive Player of the Year award. So that's my final thoughts on this game for now. It makes me look even more further to December 8th. Any final thoughts from you two?
Well, just based on what you said,
go ahead.
Was it also Myles Garrett marketing for his next contract?
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that.
I'm just saying I agree. I'm just saying whether it be in Cleveland or somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this
Well,
this this is his Reggie White, stage right now. Not to cut you off, Chris, but this is his Reggie White stage right now. Do you stick with the team that you've done all so much for, or go on to a contender? Chris, thoughts? My fault. What were we gonna say?
well, I was gonna say this. I'm just happy for one thing. Baltimore is tied for wins in the AFC North with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And thank you, thank you, Cleveland, thank you,
Told
Cleveland. But but I have concerns about Baltimore too because on the other side of that I can't wait until Pittsburgh comes to Baltimore, and I want Baltimore because because Pittsburgh is due for a big butt whipping from the Ravens. They are due. They are due. They have won. They have won all these games, and I'm thinking Lamar wants them too because Lamar wants to win, wants to beat those guys. So that's my last thought of it.
All right. Well, with that being said, there's a lot to dive into within that. But now we move on to the Ravens, who played in the Harbaugh Ball Monday night they traveled to Los Angeles, played at SoFi Stadium, and they won 30-23. Now, one that did not watch the game would think, man, did it go down to the wire? Did the Ravens have to get a last second touchdown to win the game? Actually, no. If you ask me, they had the game in the palm of their hands for quite some time during that game, despite the fact that they were leading 14-13 at halftime. There was a point within the fourth quarter in which they were leading 30-16. They held the Chargers to one touchdown during the second half, and it really was just a play with visible, holes and voids, which we'll dive into because of the text chat, which I enjoyed seeing. However, though, this was still another game in which we saw domination offensively. Lamar Jackson doing Lamar Jackson things, completing 16 of his 22 passes for 177 yards, along with his 3 touchdowns total, 2 in the passing, 1 rushing. But how about Derrick Henry with his 140 rushing yards on 24 carries? Don't even care if he didn't score. The fact that you're dominating and holding the field that much and getting that many yards, that game made it his 6th game this season with over 100 rushing yards. Utter domination, candidate for Offensive Player of the Year, etc. Opening thoughts within this. I don't even want to get carried away with King Henry alone. Thoughts within this game, please.
Well, I gotta say this. The Ravens ran the ball 37 times against 22. Okay, they ran the ball 37 times. When the Ravens win all 4 losses, they didn't run the ball. The 4 losses, they passed more than they ran. That's the formula, and which is why it's going to be an interesting collision course with the Philadelphia Eagles next week. I still haven't received word if I'm going to be down there yet. But the thing is, you got to stick to that formula. You got to stick to, even if they struggle in the beginning, because Henry's going to break off his runs. I mean, Henry, it was a struggle in the beginning last night. And to be honest, when the Ravens went into halftime at 14-13 and then they dominated the second half, although I got to say there was some questionable pass interference calls in that game that went against the Ravens, and the only reason why the Chargers got that last touchdown was they got a pass interference call on a 4th down play, and it was a horrible call. But the thing is, what I was glad the Ravens kept control of that game. Lamar, made some great plays in both running the football and in passing the football. I mean, the pass to Rashad Bateman was nothing short. I mean, if you're thinking that Lamar Jackson can't complete passes in tough windows, that was a really tough window of space that he got that ball to Bateman last night. And then they just went back to their formula of running the football. And when you can run like that, it enables Lamar to run and it enables him to find time in the passing game. The defense is still, they were missing Roquan Smith last night, and they played okay. I mean, they played well against a team that doesn't necessarily have the receivers that put the fear of God into you and whatnot. And that's probably where the Chargers struggle. But I thought in that second half, the Ravens just played Ravens football really from that second quarter when they did that tush push and whatnot, from their own fourth down at their own 16. That's insane. I mean, that might work on a video game, although the video game tries hard, to stop you in those situations. And so they put Mark Andrews behind center and they powered their way to a first down. I think that got their confidence back because they were a bit on shaky ground in the first quarter, but they figured it out and they won the game. So, like I said, maybe Lamar solidified his case for MVP. He accounted for 3 of the Ravens touchdowns. And then of course the running game worked so well that Justice Hill, that was the score that pretty much settled the game, in my opinion. I mean, like I said, the other touchdown by LA was window dressing, basically. But the Ravens pretty much had the game in hand at that point. It was pretty much over.
Okay. Sapphire, thoughts within the game?
Yeah, I mean, Chris said it. I mean, right there, we were going back on text per our usual during games, and it just came back to the Ravens playing Ravens football. Run the doggone ball, put the ball in King Henry's hands. I don't know why it's so difficult for Monken just to stick to what has worked. For me, that was the difference in the game, right? Lamar, it seemed like when he started, I don't know where his head was at. He was kind of jittery, kind of unsettled. But
yeah,
right.
Mm-hmm.
But he calmed down, and like I said, they got back to Ravens football. The other thing that was curious to me was this J.K. Dobbins injury, right? And San Diego press is all over it.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to places like there were no visible signs of any limping, in favor of that knee. And I think he's questionable even for the next game. But
I saw him limping a little bit. I did see him.
Yeah, I thought that too.
He appears out in San Diego because they're on him like white on rice about it, right? And I thought that was a sort of momentum shift as well, right? But for me, in terms of Lamar Jackson and MVP, I think I become desensitized to, he's a superhero, right? And I feel like just as a Lamar Jackson fan, I need to see him take up that next level. Because you and I have talked about it. That home game upcoming with the Steelers, it needs to be an arse kick. I need to see him take his game to that next level before I'm really thinking about him as MVP for 2024. Those are my thoughts on the game.
Well, real quick, I mean, what does to Sapphire? What does next level look like within? Preparation, within style of play, like just within your eyes for the two-time MVP, what would the next level look like?
Let's take, for example, the game against the Chargers.
Okay.
He looked, again, he just seemed unsettled, right? And for me, he is the compass for that offense. He sets the tone. He sets the pace. He's jittery. Everyone else is jittery, right? And I think it impacts their performance. Right? So to me, there are enough tools. The Ravens have enough tools to not be running up against the clock at the end of the game. It's going to be field goals. It's going to be touchdown. They should be outperforming the teams they face consistently without having a nail biter at the end of the game. In terms of preparation, I think he's already fine-tuned. Look, he knows he has. He knows what he's doing. His body, his mind, all of that. But in the moment, like I talk about real-time situational play, I'm starting to see this from Lamar Jackson. I don't know why.
like playing down to the level of their opponent, not really going out and unleashing full, capabilities of what he is and what he can be.
For me, it's drama.
Okay.
He seems bothered. He's more emotional on the sidelines. You can see he's really amped up in his facial expressions. That's how deep I go, ladies and gentlemen. So he obviously has the talent. But
Okay.
a month or so ago, we were talking about how the game slowed down for him. But there's been a marked difference in terms of I just think he's carrying himself on the field, on the sideline to me. And I don't know if there's something off the field happening or whatever in the locker room. I don't know. But he definitely played down to the church level at the beginning of that game. And so
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say he is at the beginning of that game because I noticed you and I talked about it, Sapphire, because I know there were a couple of passes he missed, and I think at the end of the day, I think that and I don't know if that was just aftershock from Pittsburgh and whatnot, but I still think that there's a mentality with him that says, I have to win and take over this game. And maybe some of the carryover from the Steelers loss kind of came there. But once he settled down in that second quarter and started letting his weapons, weaponize and what have you, I think he played a great game from the second quarter to the fourth quarter. And like I said, he was back to being Lamar in that game, making plays with his legs, scored a touchdown that was similar to the one he scored in high school. I mean, he did some things in this game that I thought he did some things that I thought, were a positive thing. He didn't, I think he relaxed. He didn't try to overthink the game. He just went out and played from the second, because the Ravens basically went on like a 30 to 6 run, like in basketball, for the rest of the game. Okay. They went on a 30-6 run, and the only thing is that last touchdown, which was marred by some bad pass interference penalties and whatnot, just gave it window dressing. But I thought he had a solid performance, 3 total touchdowns, 2 touchdown passes. He completed most of his passes. Did he look jittery in the beginning? Yes, I think he did. I think he was trying. He still has this thing where he reverts back to trying too hard because somehow he has to prove that he is one of the best. He doesn't really have to, but sometimes in your mind you feel that way.
I have 2 quick points before we move on to Cincinnati, who was on a bye week, but there's still a lot to talk about, especially with this lovely comment right here, which I know we'll dive into. Zach Taylor on the hot seat. We'll dive to that in a second. But going with 2 quick points before we move on to that. With Lamar, and this is kind of a 2-parter with Lamar and Derrick Henry. Number one, is it what the observations are right now regarding Lamar? Could that be due to last year, a year in which they go out and dominate, and to the point in which people finally had to give them their respect and say maybe this is their year? So good to the point where you're hosting Kansas City in a playoff game, hosting them in the AFC Championship, and the wheels fall off, and you overthink the game, making little mistakes that we haven't seen all season, and then Patrick Mahomes kind of being the guy ahead of him, the bar of excellence, and he's just right underneath because he hasn't won anything. Could it be because of everything last year and how the way things turned out last year that we've seen Lamar with a different approach to the game, or how he's come out early on and stuff, for what we've seen from him on the sideline?
I think it's pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly that, though. Exactly that. I just said that within like 20 more words, but yeah, exactly that, though.
It's the pressure, and there's a part where a lot of times you feel it as an athlete. I mean, he may not talk about it. It may not be. You're not going to hear him say this at a Wednesday press conference, right?
Right.
He's not going to say it at a Wednesday press conference, and I think in his mind, he's feeling that pressure because everybody's saying he can't beat Pittsburgh and he can't beat Kansas City. And that is on his mind. And at some point, he has to go out there and beat those guys. And he has to go out there. And I think, like I said, I heard something that boxing trainer Teddy Atlas said that, that when those pressure points come up in either a boxing match or in a football game, remember, you still have to, you are still in control of what's happening. You are still how you respond. You control how you're going to respond to that situation. You control that situation. And I think he has to choose in his mind. He has to, whenever he plays Pittsburgh again or Kansas City, if he gets to that point, he has to get it out of their mind and play football. Don't try to be a hero. Take what they give you. And if you see something open, go get it. But, let the game come to you. Let that flow of a football game come to you, because it's easy. It's like jump shooters in basketball. They have a little bit of a slump against certain teams, and they'll just try to keep shooting and shooting and shooting. And, they may hit it, but there's a point where if you're a shooter, take the ball to the basket. Concentrate on small passes. Let Derrick Henry and Justice Hill and those guys and get make plays in those short those running games and short to intermediate passing situations. Sometimes you gotta just it's called relax. You gotta just calm down. In every other situation, you've already proven you can dissect defenses and find guys. Don't try to force things. And that happened in the AFC Championship last year, is that he has a tendency to try to force everything.
Understandable.
That's fascinating.
Yep.
I think also Monkey needs to do a better job of being more consistent in calling plays that are proven to work. For example, those 2 touchdowns.
And stay away from penalty.
Yeah, but for me, the Ravens need to send Gilman a belated birthday present, because he got burned on both of those touchdowns. First, Hill, with that line blocked down and put Hill in a one-on-one matchup with Gilman, got burned. Secondly, Andrews, right? The routes that I think it was Bateman and Zay Flowers ran, that gave Andrews the space in that seam route to sit there. He went over the top of Gilman. Gilman, his head wasn't turned around. Those are the things that I feel Todd Monken can do to help Lamar, so his head is in that space that you just described, versus feeling like he's got to put everything on his back and add on to the pressure. Like you said, I agree. He can't beat Casey. He can't beat this one. So.
All right, yeah, like that, and also to your point earlier, last thing before we go on, I understand why there just aren't games in which they just say, let's just use our workhorse in the backfield with Derrick Henry, because if you look at their 4 losses, 3 of those losses have occurred in which Henry is carrying the ball 13 times or less. Right. Somebody that should be an automatic 20 plus. Yep. 20 should be the minimum at the rate he's going right now. 6 games this season with over 100 rushing yards. There's no reason he shouldn't have more. But that is an end. I can't believe you got me in the mix with this fool. Exactly. Exactly. Smoke it.
Come on, Todd Monken.
Exactly. So
come on, Todd. Yeah, you're right about that, man. And I would also try to use Derrick Henry in space, because you give him the ball in a screen situation, or give him the ball just in a passing situation. He's gonna knock half the daggone linebackers and defensive backs down and whatnot.
Yep. Valid point. I don't know why they don't do much slip screen as well too. Like, there aren't too many backs that are, just gonna be that dominant within that kind of scheme. And he's somebody just gonna run over anybody in front of him, because he's been doing that his whole life. But we'll put a quick pin in that right now regarding the Ravens. I think now it's time to go on and speak about the Bengals. This is a team that, oh man, how do I even start? How do I even articulate what has not already? But you know what? I don't even care. We'll just go in and do what we do. They're 4-7 right now. Okay, they're third in the division. Now they're on a bye week right now. This is their bye week, so they didn't play in week 12. They will play in Week 13 versus Pittsburgh. We'll get to that later on. But their most recent game was a loss, another one-score loss. Once again, another one-possession loss to the Chargers, 34-27. So the Chargers were coming off a win over the Bengals before going in and playing Baltimore. It was a game in which, went down to the wire. We were talking about Dobbins earlier with the injury. Wasn't no sense of an injury during that game in Week 11 because he went out for that 29-yard rushing touchdown to give the Chargers the game. I mean, at this point, what more can you ask from this team? What more can you expect? Is this, before we even dive into much regarding just this team, because we already spoke about the game of bench stuff, I believe, the last time, but like, what is the state of this team right now as they go through their, prepare for their final 6 games of the season?
Well, go ahead, Sapphire.
I just feel like to Willie F. Jr.'s point, Zach Taylor's in the hot seat. We got a phrase in my neck of the woods: the inmates are running the asylum. That's it. I mean, and I mean, we talked about this, right? Listen, I'm of a certain age. I grew up watching footballers go out and play football. This blingy stuff with the grill, the teeth, the necklace, and Instagram and stuff, that's foreign to me. And as a fan, and I can imagine what Bengals fans feeling, maybe that is different if they're winning, right? But they're not. And I just feel like they're so fragmented, right? Do you ever see Burrow talk to Zach Taylor during game?
Right.
Or to Chase?
Right.
T, I don't even know that T. Higgins wanted to be there this season, right? So what is, we talk about the importance of identity and culture. What does that look like for the Bengals? Because their record reflects that. There is nothing there.
Yeah, I mean, you are what your record says you are. And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to answer Willie's question. Zach Taylor should, if he's not on the hot seat, he ought to be. He should be. He should be on the hot seat because there's no way that offense has too many weapons. I mean, and in defense of Jamar Chase, wearing some of the goofy stuff that players in this day, it's just some of the stuff is just silly. But in defense, Jamar Chase has been producing. I'm not mad, as Drew Pearson once said, if he was talking, he was referring to the time when the Cowboys called themselves Thurman Steves after Dennis Thurman. And he was saying, if all those things motivate you and make you play well, I don't care. Like I say, he could come off the field with a pirate and a parrot on his shoulder, long as you produce. The problem is, there should be somebody putting a foot up the rear end of the defense, because that defense is no way you let J.K. Dobbins late in the game. If they're going to score a touchdown, I'd rather see them do that through the air and whatnot. Can I see where did everybody go?
You're right here.
Okay. Let me say something about it, because you're going to help me. I understand what you're saying about Chase producing.
Right.
I get that. But what is the impact to his team members, right?
Yeah.
Right. Who, that look, that feel, they know it's about a contract for him. And this is real.
Right.
Because I remember a few years ago, there was conversations happening in the Browns locker room to say, well, listen, they're going to pay him. Who's blocking for him, right?
Right.
It's a domino effect. And let me give you one quick contrast. Last year, when the Browns he was falling out, you had a solo tackle. They gave the player a chain. Remember all that? That was their kind of like reward system. Please,
right?
No, it wasn't just about one player. For example, Myles Garrett. When other players made outstanding plays, they wore the chain. Right? It was a team approach, a tool to keep everyone motivated to recognize them for their their play. I don't see that happening with the Bengals. I see Mr. Chase, and even if you look at the tape after the game, I can't remember the San Diego player that came over. They were doing the romance thing. He was telling Chase, "You're the greatest. You're the greatest. You got to believe that. Don't let anybody tell you you're not the greatest." Then I see the players walk off the field, and I see Burrow on one side of the tunnel,
and Chase on the other side.
Right. This is what I'm saying, guys. I've never played football, okay? But to me, it's about how are the players integrating with each other? How are they standing up for each other? How are they feeling? All of that. And when you have a diva and so Chase has mad skills, and they're going to get him the ball, his stats are going to be what they're going to be. But what is the impact of that on the rest of the team?
Well, I gotta say this, and I'm gonna answer that question, Sapphire.
I will too after first.
Yeah, and I'm gonna answer quick because I really want to hear what Irene has to say about it. I'm not mad at the offense. I mean, Zach, like I say, Joe Burrow and the offense has done. I mean, for the points they put up, they should have won a couple of those games, including the 2 games against Baltimore. I'm not mad at the offense, but Zach Taylor needs to do something about that defense, and I think that defensive coordinator better stop putting his house up for sale because he's not going. I mean, I don't know if they're going to bring him back. They've got to improve defensively. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say about that. But that defense has to get better. And in order for them, if they're going to make a run to the playoffs, and right now they're not even in the conversation for right now. They're not even in the conversation right now. They're going to have to basically, they've got to get better on defense. That's the bottom line. Nothing. I have no problem with the offense. It's the defense that's got to win. Defense, and you said it, Sapphire. Yeah. Defense wins championships. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Irie.
No. You're good. You two said it. Defense wins championships. So I'm going to come in there from 2 sides. These are points that like have been mentioned before by myself or by you two. Whether on the show or off the show, off the record. So it won't be anything new, but just kind of within my thoughts and sense regarding everything within. So for one, I'm going to speak first about the defense and then about distractions. The defense does have to improve because right now the defense, at least statistically by the points right now, they're giving up around 27 points a game. However, it looks worse because they're giving up the 4th most points in the 4th quarter. Now, I just said they're giving up 27 points a game, 26.9 to be exact. A third of that is being allowed in the 4th quarter alone. They're giving up the 4th most points a game in the 4th quarter alone at 9.5 to be exact. That is not a good look. That tells you that they are solid, for the first 3 quarters, and then they shoot themselves in the foot somehow, some way each game. Because why are you giving up a third of the points that you're allowing per game during the final 15 minutes, the most important quarter, the most important period of each game, the final, Mm-hmm. So there definitely has to be a better sense within that because how is it that week by week when talking about this team, it always comes down to those 2 words, little things. The little things, all the pieces matter. How is it coming to this each time, each game in which you're so close, you're right there when adding to the win column, and something else they just slightly, a small void have to improve on, whether it be somewhere within the backfield, whether it be within emotional control, whether just within a simple read. Why is Dobbins getting that long of a run without being touched like that for the score? Mm-hmm. Why? So that's the defensive side, as we talked about. Now is the distraction side. And this isn't anything that, look, I don't know everything. And I always go back to that second game. Not that first game this season. Not when they lost to New England, but that second game of the season versus Kansas City, a team that is bad blood. They always go at it and stuff. And it was just so, baffling to me. Because, and let me just say this, as a, former athlete, I support and understand the emotional side of it, showing your emotions during a game, letting that be, playing within stuff. I love it. I support it 100%. there is also a sense of for what they would call EQ, emotional intelligence, controlling those emotions. Towards the end, during the fourth quarter, when Burrow found Chase for that little 4 yard reception, which would have made it 3rd and 7. And then Jamar Chase was going on because he felt there was a flag. He didn't got flagged for unsportsmanlike conduct, and he was unable to control his emotions going off at the ref.
Right.
Joe Burrow is trying to keep him, from going off and everything. And then now they're talking a bit and stuff, and that puts them into a 3rd and 22. Despite the fact that they got a field goal, for that could have been a touchdown, but that was such a big red flag and something that I feel has carried on throughout the season because, like we talk about distractions, like what's going on behind the scenes that we don't know, to where something as simple as that is being overblown or being exaggerated to where now it's impacting the team's, ending result. And like you talked about, Sapphire, Burrow and Chase being on opposite sides, the sun and walking down and stuff. You'll go back to the beginning of the season, the off season. T. Higgins wanted out. His trade request wasn't granted. Burrow coming in looking like Slim Shady. They're practicing. They're practicing ahead of the season, and Jamar Chase is walking around, walking off in street clothes because he hasn't been paid his money yet. But then that he's probably thinking about his good friend and Joe Burrow, a college teammate, who 4 days ahead of last season, 3 to 4 days ahead of last season, got that big contract extension, which ranks highly within NFL history. So he's probably thinking, why were they so quick to give him the extension? But they make me hold out, and we still haven't gotten the money that he wanted. All these things that carried out, and despite the fact that Burrow is doing well, 3rd in passing yards, 1st in passing touchdown, Jamar Chase doing well, triple crown, possibly 3rd in receptions, 1st in receiving yards, 1st in receiving touchdowns. I am not moved. I am not sold. There's stuff going on. There's chaos behind the scenes that they are not going to allow within us to know, because what PRT, what organization will really do it and allow their mess to be outlined within it. This is not like the Philadelphia 76ers where you got a professional podcaster and Paul George talking about the leak and the Sixers meeting and stuff. But that's besides the point. Wrong sport, wrong team, fucked up. Let's stay on task. So yes, you understand my point within this. These things are boldly up, culminating into which the more and more games that they lose, because they're right there. Like this is another one of those seasons. Last thing I'll say. This is a team in which I still stand by the fact that their record does not match their play. This is a good team out there. The problem is they continually shoot themselves in the foot, and that's why all but one of their losses have been one-score games, because they shoot themselves in the foot when it matters most. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Yeah, well, and I gotta say you're right about that, but also. And like but that, like I say, that's the comment of the night. But the thing is, I mean, Irie, you're right about that. You are absolutely right, because but it's the offense too, the coaches. Like the first Ravens game, right? I'm up there thinking, when they got the ball back and whatnot, when they got the ball back in overtime, when they got that turnover, I was thinking, go deep to, or go across the middle to Jamar Chase or T. Higgins or anybody, anybody who was any receiver. It was like they inexplicably ran the football.
Inexplicably.
And I'm like,
talk about it, OG.
Yeah, I mean, inexplicably, they just did not. My thing is, at that point, I'm if I got the ball, I'm getting it down closer. I don't trust my kicker from that deep. I don't trust the kicker, and then they didn't get a fourth down. I mean, they put themselves in a hole, and then the Ravens get the ball back, and then one play to Derrick Henry, and then they get a close field goal. So there must be something going on. That coaching staff, I mean, that you want to talk about people who overthink the game. They're number one in that. And I think right now they're so anxious when you don't win, when you're not where you should be. That's when poise has to come in, because it's easy to point fingers, and that Irie might be a thing that's going on behind the scenes.
Okay.
Is that people are pointing fingers.
You're right. You're right, OG. You're right on that. You're so right on that. I think that's what it is as well. He said.
And let me add this. You talked about earlier in the season being at KC. Do you recall, I think it was near the end of the game, there was a timeout, and Logan Wilson turned to the Bengals sideline and he mouthed, "What the F?"
I remember.
Right? Right? So that gives you a good indication about where defense was at that time. And now we see their defense perform for a number of weeks after that. We talk about coaches. The defensive coordinator, Lou, what's his name? Arumo. I do even know who he is by name.
Right.
But you look at the team that he was with before, the Giants, the Dolphins, and this I'm not throwing a dart. When you talk about being competitive in the NFL, we know it's not just about offense. Burrow can put up 60 million points, but if that defense is playing the way the Bengals defense is, it doesn't matter, right? Mm-hmm. So I go to that. As much as Zach Taylor is in the hot seat, I think that defensive coordinator is as well.
I would agree. Can't argue with that. I was just imitating darts doing it.
I like that, OG. Yeah, so I think we all do collectively agree that Zach Taylor should be on the hot seat. Just for the simple fact that when you're the head coach and the team is not going in the direction that was proposed prior, expected ahead, and you get to this point, there does have to be some questions, especially when there's visible play calls, by you within your zone that are also questionable. Just like you said, when they played Ravens, like that ball should be going primarily to Jamar, even if he's triple team, but it's going elsewhere. The little things of that sort that really bring it to now that we have to talk about now. Like even I'm just saying this right, just for the heck of it, even that win versus the Browns, that 13-14 win over the Browns, like that wasn't a dominating win. They struggled like heck in the first half. The only touchdown that came that was accounted for in the first half was the opening kickoff. The offense didn't do nothing during that. So it's naturally going to blow back on the coach. But we will also put a pin in this because I feel there's so much to talk about within this, and we'll try to save some of that ahead of the final 6 games of the season. Now I think it's time for predictions, everybody. My favorite part of the show. Now this is, Turkey week. We hope everybody has a lovely Thanksgiving, enjoy time with the family, eat good, sleep good, get some rest, and of course, watch some good football. There will be some games ahead on Thanksgiving, Black Friday. None of those games will include any teams from the AFC North, but it's all good. Say the best for last. Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. They play 1 o'clock. Cincinnati host. I'm going to go with the Steelers in this case because I think that they're going to recover from the recent loss versus the Browns. And they're going to go out there, go and play their style of ball that they're used to playing and go out there and win. Predictions from you two?
Go ahead, Sapphire. I'm still trying to figure it out.
This is a very, very difficult game for me because really both teams, in my view, it's a must-win game.
100%.
Right? The Steelers go back-to-back losses. I can't even see it happening. I mean, I feel like Tomlin has his team tuned up to have that in the forefront of their mind. We cannot go 0-2. Whatever it takes, whatever we did not bring last Thursday night, we got to take it down to Cincinnati. Cincinnati, similarly, for all reasons that we just discussed, I mean, this could be the week that they're actually even rolled out of the playoff hunt, right?
Right.
So it's not about players and stats. This is about manning up and dictating your will on your opposition. And for that reason, I'm going to stick with the sleeper. Steelers over the Bengals.
All right. I say Steelers, you say Steelers. Chris?
Well, wait 1 minute here. Now, just not so fast. Not so fast. I think that the Cincinnati Bengals are desperate. I think, and they have the explosiveness in their offense for them to be desperate. Pittsburgh is not as explosive. I think they outscore Pittsburgh. It'll be a tough game, but I think Cincinnati will do just enough at home. Their season is on the line. Of course, they could blow it. But I'm going to go with Cincinnati. I think they're the most desperate team at this point. They're the most desperate team. They've got to, they have to make some sort of statement, because I think that the coaching, there are a lot of jobs on the line, and I think they win that game.
Okay.
All right. So let's see. Me and Sapphire going to Steelers once again after last week. Chris going the opposite side with the Bengals. He went 1-for-1. Let's see if lightning strikes twice.
Yeah.
2 times.
Well, like I said, a broken clock is right at least twice a day.
Amen.
So
like
so and like I say, and since I am an older feller, so to speak, I mean I could be wrong, but
You could be
but
right.
hey,
You could be
that's
right.
It's a flip like I say, every now and then the sun shines on the dog's arse every so often, and so that's one thing, especially when I go outside and whatnot. But I don't want to show people my arse either. So that's one thing.
Yeah. Next game, Philadelphia plays at Baltimore. So the Ravens host the Eagles, a 4:25 game. That's going to be a terrific game, prime time, CBS. I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be very exciting. I am going to go with the Ravens in this case. Maybe surprising and stuff. I do think the Eagles are a terrific team right now. They haven't lost since what was it, week 4? Versus Tampa Bay. They've been on this win streak since winning the last 7 games, I believe. But I think the Ravens will go in there and they're going to dominate the ground, and that's going to help out within the long term. For this team, I'm not fully trustworthy within their Eagles' run defense, being able to limit them. And I think that's what's going to help the Ravens win in the long term. So yeah, Ravens.
Ravens, okay, all right. Well, I'm going to go with Baltimore too, but I think I don't know if the Eagles are going to have Darius Slay, or they're going to have Slay with them because he got hurt.
Yeah.
Although Quinyon Mitchell and the kid St. Jean
they're
good. The Ravens are going to have to. It's going to be a close game because the Ravens defense is not. I mean, the Ravens defense has always had problems, especially dealing with AJ Brown when he was with Tennessee. He has always been a problem for the Ravens.
Right.
And the thing is, I think that's a close game. And I think it's going to come down to whether or not Lamar or Jalen Hurts is going to make a big play in that game. But I wouldn't be surprised if Saquon gets loose early. It's going to be a long day for Baltimore. But I don't know. I'm going to go because either way I'm going to sound like a homer and whatnot because I cover the Eagles. Either way I'm going to sound, but I'm gonna say Baltimore wins only because they're at home. If they were in Philadelphia, I would probably go with the Eagles and whatnot. That's how close that game is, how the game is going to be. Would not be surprised if Philly won.
All right, Sapphire.
Yeah, I mean, guys, everything you said. I'm going to take the Eagles, and here's why. To the point that Chris made about AJ, Saquon Barkley, and listen. Quinyon Mitchell, he is about come out. He's about to come out. Very dynamic player. Couple that with DeJohn. They got a great secondary in terms of dealing with the pass. The question is how well the Eagles are going to do the run. But I'm going to go with the Eagles. I think they're playing more consistently over the last several weeks. And, right down Interstate 95, I don't see that as much of a away game as maybe most people do. So I'm taking the Eagles.
All right. Okay. So 2 Ravens, 1 Eagles. And lastly, the Browns travel. Fly, Eagles, fly indeed.
I know the words to the song.
And lastly, the Browns will play on the road versus Denver. I'm just going to start off right now and just say I'm back on the train to at least just for this game, primarily because of the matchup. I'm going to choose the Browns to win this game. I think that the Browns are taking on the whole attitude of spoiling this, the seasons of other teams. Denver is 7-5. Cleveland, what was it going? Make a statement, especially after last year. in which they lost to Denver around the same time. And I believe that they'll be able to go in, even despite the possibility of Jameis going back the other way with then throwing more picks than touchdowns. I do see a way in which they're able to be more productive on the ground, and it even can carry on their same production from last season. I mean, from last week, because this Denver offense is not like this Denver offense is around average. You know what I mean? So there really isn't like, and you could probably argue the same regarding Pittsburgh, but the difference is Pittsburgh knows their brand of football and they excel in that. Denver is riding within their defense, and that's about it. Bo Nix, I am not impressed by, if I'm being honest. So that's why I'm choosing the Browns in this case. Sapphire, Chris, thoughts, predictions.
Go ahead, Chris.
Well, I have to let you. Sapphire has, because she's our Browns person too. But I gotta say that I hope. Let me say this: I hope Cleveland wins. Okay, because I don't like Sean. What's his face? I don't like.
You don't like Sean Payton?
And I don't like Sean Payton. I ain't like how he treated Russell Wilson last year. But I think that the Browns. I don't know. I think the Browns revert back to being the Browns on the road. If it was a home game in Cleveland, I would say, hey. But I just think, and I think that's going to be a close game. I don't, because I'm not impressed by Bo Nix or the Broncos at all. Okay, I'm not impressed by them. They haven't shown me anything. And at the end of the day, I want Cleveland to win, but I think the Broncos will win by 3. They'll do enough to win.
All right, Sapphire to close us out.
Broncos.
All right, and just like it's just Sapphire, the same way the answer is just Broncos. So with that, we thank you all again for tuning in to the edition of Fear the North. Thank you all for coming through and listening. Appreciate your time, especially within this busy Thanksgiving week. Peace and blessings. We're here every Tuesday night, 8:30, 8:40 Eastern time. We air, and we do just bring it right now. Like, subscribe, share. You can follow us on X and on Blue Sky at Fear the North 4. At Fear the North 4, the number 4, not how you type out, FOUR, but the number 4 exactly. So type that in right now if you like to while we're still on, so that you know where to follow us at. And we'll be here every week giving you the best of the best. And the more you guys tune in, the more we're able to give you even better content. So thank you all. Peace, good night, deuces, eat good, sleep good. Ciao.